So let's talk a little bit about some of these great features that we get with mobile. So one of the things we get is an accelerometer. And it really is as simple as these few lines of code. You create a new instance of an accelerometer, you add an event listener asking for an update. Inside your update listener, you can basically figure out the acceleration in the 3 planes, the X, the Y, and the Z. And with that, you can have a marble table balancing game, written with no problem. But, this is just simple stuff. Gestures. So I mentioned gestures earlier. So here is, some movie clip called Cell. And it has an event listener listening for a transform gesture event, listening for the gesture zoom. So also a zoom gesture. So that's that pinch and zoom. And literally it just listens and says, hey, I'm getting a transform gesture event. And it will tell you the scale X and the scale Y. I can do all this. The next line of code below that is the rotate event. So I can listen to say, hey, I'm picking up the gesture rotation. And then inside the listener, I'm telling that movie clip to rotate. And literally with this little bit of code, I picked up, natural interface gestures I can have on a device and done something with them. GeoLocation. This is always a fun one. It's fun. A mobile device is that. Mobile. You're out and about. You're out hiking. You're at Legoland. You're walking downtown, going from bar to bar or wherever. Geolocation's fun. Foursquare, Koala. How much should Koala just get bought for? Fun stuff. But geolocation, really simple. You need to ask. I actually didn't put this in the other ones. But you need to ask whether or not the feature is supported. And pretty much all the mobile-specific type features, geolocation, accelerometer, there is supported capability. So you can at least say, oops, sorry, you have this device for some reason doesn't have GPS. Great example, that iPod Touch does not have a GPS sensor. So if you were doing a GPS application, an iPod Touch would not work for you. But with GPS, basically you set up a geolocation object, add an event listener, and you say how often you want it to update. And this harks back to what I said about 15 minutes ago about battery life. GPS will really drain your battery really bad. It's one of those challenges a lot of the running applications, or the hiking applications have, of finding the balance of how often do I mark your geolocation, but at the same time, don't kill your battery. So there's a thing out that's supported called set requested update interval. So here I'm telling it to happen every 10,000 milliseconds, and then I'll go out and do something. So just something to be aware of, especially if you're playing the geolocation space. Another difference between the mobile and the desktop space, especially with an Android phone, is we have these things. We have hardware keys. And unfortunately, under Android, they can be in different locations from phone to phone, and from even from carrier to carrier. You can have the same phone on Verizon and the same phone on Sprint, and they can swap the home key and the back key. So typically on an Android phone, you have 4 hardware keys. You have a search key, a menu key, a back key, and a home key. You cannot override the home key on an Android phone. You can listen for the deactivate event and moving to back and try to clean up something, but you cannot override it. And on the iOS platform, there's only one button, that one little home button. Again, that is a button you cannot override. All you can do is listen to the fact that you're being shut down, and then try to save something really fast before you go away. But for the other buttons, usually the back button and the menu button are the 2 critical ones with an Android phone. You can listen explicitly for those guys. So you can listen for the keyboard.back and the keyboard.menu and do some stuff. Now, the important thing is you need to prevent default. So basically, you have to stop the event chain. So if you've done any sort of AS3 programming, you're probably used to event listeners, event bubbling, Same thing here, because what will happen is, if you don't capture that event within your application, it's going to bubble out of your application into the OS and do something. Most notably, the back key. So if the back key is not captured, your app will basically exit. So little word of warning: if you put something together and you forget to add some keyboard listeners, and you drill down and you hit the back key expecting to navigate back up a screen and you're back at your home screen, that's why. So let's talk about orientation. I mentioned it a few times already. So we can move our phone. We can go from portrait to landscape. So quite often what you want to do is you want to set your scale mode to no scale, align it to the top left. It's something you do by default. And then what you want to do is you want to start figuring out how I'm launching. What's my position? You know, am I being launched vertically? Am I being launched horizontally? And how I want to lay this out. Then I want to add an event listener, usually at the stage level, for a resize event. That's actually what gets fired. And then go through and reconfigure my application as need be. I mean, this is very simple, very rudimentary, but, you know, a lot of effort probably needs to be taken in your application in handling this resize event if you're going to support both. A lot of times I don't. I will just typically support portrait mode, but that's a choice. Now, I mentioned some database support. So databases are great because it's a great way to store your information in, you know, a nice or, you know, model view controller type thing, you know, put everything up in a database and access it properly. If you are not familiar with this application called Lita, it's actually an Air app. I'm sure you can download it from. Got a few quirks, a little old, but I use it primarily in creating my databases that I include in my mobile apps. And one of the reasons why I like it versus, say, some of the other tools out there is the fact that it's written in Air. So I have a level of confidence that the SQL that gets supported, because there are sort of different flavors of SQLite. So I have a better degree of confidence that what I'm creating is going to be read and understood. Sometimes some SQL access stuff tends to fail kind of silently, or when it does fail, it fails very cryptically. So this is kind of a tiny little safety net that I use. So I wanted to share that.